Sky Hypnosis. It's Friday, so it has to be Friday Live at 5. Am I right? Okay. Today we're going to be talking about losing that stubborn weight using hypnosis. Weight loss is a very important topic, I would say, for this channel. The videos that have by far the most amount of views, there's a couple that have 2.5 million views, I think, almost each one of them, pertain to weight loss. And people have had some remarkable successes using the free content that I have available on my YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis. Subscribe if you haven't. And we're going to be talking about that issue today, specifically with what is it? Because those of us who've tried to lose weight in the past have generally run into this issue where it works for a while and then it doesn't work. Try something else, works for a while, then it doesn't work. Lose some weight, then gain it all back, and maybe even more. That's why I use that word stubborn, because it seems to be, for a lot of people, most people I would submit, a stubborn problem. As I always do, standard disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I am not a psychologist. If you have important medical issues, psychological issues, consult with your licensed provider. If you have questions, make sure you ask those questions in the comment chat box. If you have comments that you want to make, put them in there as well. It's the back and forth that makes this dynamic. It makes it interesting. It takes us in directions that we would definitely not go in if I were just talking on and on and on, just me, myself, and I. So please participate if you feel so moved to do that. If you have suggestions for future lives, please also put those in the comment chat section, or send me an email at peter@blueskyhypnosis.com. Okay, lose stubborn weight by utilizing hypnosis. One of the first things I suppose we should talk about, and maybe some of you who have tuned in before to the weight loss content on my channel understand this, that I believe weight loss, successful weight loss, is essentially like having a three-legged stool. Conventional weight loss approaches, I'm saying, generally only have two legs, and that's why they fail. What are those two legs? Well, leg number one would be calories in. What are you eating? How many calories are you eating? The more enlightened of those out there would be saying a calorie isn't just a calorie. A calorie from a donut is different than a calorie from a stick of celery. But essentially, it's the one leg is the calories in. The second leg of that stool would be calories out. Are you exercising? And if you take in more calories than you expend, you're going to gain weight. That makes sense. Okay, great. Well, that's kind of the two-legged stool that gets that is run with. I'm saying there's a third leg to ensure that stool doesn't tip over. And the third leg is your psycho-emotional state. Why is this important? Well, we have terms and phrases in our culture like emotional eating. So if eating, if weight loss, if these issues didn't have a psycho-emotional component, we wouldn't have phrases like emotional eating or stress eating or mindless eating. All of these imply an emotional connection, a psychological connection to what we're doing. And after all, don't we have a psychological, emotional connection to everything in our lives? Why wouldn't we want to address that part of it and not simply the calories in and calories out? And by the way, I'm not saying that exercise is a bad idea. No, it's a good idea. I'm not saying that being aware of what you're eating isn't important, or that if you take in fewer calories than you burn, you'll lose weight. I believe in all of those things. But in order to be successful with those things in the long run, we have to deal with that third leg of the stool, the psychological/emotional component that is sadly left out of most weight loss approaches. And I'm sure that many of you who are on this call or who listen to this later will be able to relate to that yourselves. Okay. What are some of the factors, the subconscious factors, that can cause a person's weight loss efforts to be thwarted? I would say that starts with stress. So if a person is stressed out, if they're carrying a kind of chronic level of stress, that over time, they are going to engage in things like emotional eating, things like mindless eating, things like obviously stress eating. In other words, they're going to be eating amounts of food at times of the day and night, the kinds of food and drink that otherwise, without the stress level, they wouldn't be doing. So I say to get control over weight loss and to make it permanent, we have to get control over stress. And whatever it is that's driving the stress. And when I say stress, I'm not just talking about your day-to-day life. You know, you've got to get the kids on the bus, and then you have to go to work, and then you have to pay your bills, and then you have to pay, you know, the mortgage, and then you have to fix something that went wrong at the house, and you got to go shopping for groceries and, you know, take care of your ailing in-laws and so on. Those are all important aspects of stress that can add to this sort of thing like emotional eating, mindless eating, stress eating. Of course, absolutely. But there's other aspects to stress too. So it could be a chronic illness. It could be of you or a loved one. It could be not enough sleep. It could be that it's what you're taking in through your eyes and your ears, like the news. And one of the things that I always like to quote is that for decades and decades and decades, the local news has had a saying, which is, if it bleeds, it leads. So you tune in at 11 o'clock, maybe for some people right before they go to bed, or worse, they watch the local news in bed. And what's happening on the screen? Mayhem, the latest murder, the latest robbery, the killer bees coming up from South America. We've all been subjected to this over the last 3 years. The COVID and things of that nature. And that has caused a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of stress. And this in turn leads into things like eating behavior. It also slows down your metabolic rate. If you are in a state of stress, fear and stress, then your body takes the energy it would normally deploy towards your body's major systems, including your digestive system, and it sends it out to your muscles so that you can fight or you can run away. Now, the chronic effects of this over a long period of time are absolutely deadly because things like your immune system is halved, your reproductive system, your endocrine system, and as I mentioned before, your digestive system. This is all going to affect your ability to lose weight, and it all flows back towards your psycho-emotional state. And in this example, I'm talking about what you're consuming through your eyes and your ears, like the 11 o'clock news, like the music you listen to, like the movies you watch. If you're watching thriller movies, horror movies, on a repetitive basis, your conscious mind is going to say to you, that's not real, that's just a movie. But your subconscious mind doesn't know that. It's like showing those things to a 4-year-old. Over time, it's really going to have a deleterious impact on you, especially if you're already kind of stressed out. Next would be things that have happened in your past. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself here, but this is really important for you guys to understand with respect to how the subconscious mind works. There are two things for sure that the subconscious mind is and does. Number one is its job is to protect you. Number two, it has no concept of time. Something that happened 30 years ago to the subconscious mind is happening right now. So unhealed trauma. Last week we talked about trauma. And if you didn't see that, if you weren't there live, you can always watch the recording of it on my channel, YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis. A trauma that occurred 30 years ago, or 3 days ago, or 3 years ago, to the subconscious mind is fresh. It's happening right now. So unhealed trauma from the past can be one of those aspects that prevents you from losing weight. So let's just take an example that I think most people are familiar with. Let's say we have a woman and she was attacked, like a sexual attack had occurred, and we'll just say it was 15 years ago. Her conscious mind might feel like, you know what, I went to counseling, which was awesome, it was really good, that's important to do. I feel like I've come to terms with this. That's great. That's really, really good. That doesn't mean, however, that the subconscious mind has resolved this incident in this person's mind. As I said, even if it happened 15 years ago, to the subconscious mind, it's happening right now. And the role of the subconscious is to protect this person. And it may be that the subconscious says, we need to create a barrier. We need to create a wall, like a fortress wall or a castle wall between our client, the person, and the outside world, to keep that sort of thing, that kind of attack from happening again. It may even be that there is a perception of this person or of the subconscious mind of this person, or both, that if they have excess weight, that they will not be attractive to a would-be attacker. And so if the conscious mind is saying, gee, I really want to lose all this weight. I know it's going to be really good for my health. I'm going to feel so good about myself. Maybe I'm going to feel more confident in a relationship, or I'm going to feel more confident in a dating situation. That doesn't mean that's what the subconscious mind is thinking. The subconscious mind could be thinking the exact opposite, something entirely different. And if that's the case, now we have a situation where, if it's you, you're working at cross purposes between these different parts of yourself. And the subconscious mind represents, it is thought, about 97% of your brain's processing power, making it approximately 1 million times more powerful than your conscious mind. And it never takes a break. It never goes to sleep the way your conscious mind does for a third of your life. Your subconscious mind is always awake, it's always active, it's always on duty. Even if you're in a coma, your subconscious mind is still on duty. It's what's regulating all the automatic functions of your body, like your heartbeat, your breathing, and so on. I mentioned all those other systems before, like immune system, digestive system, reproductive system, and so on. So the subconscious mind ultimately is going to win a battle between your conscious mind, willpower, and your subconscious mind, always on duty, immensely powerful. And if it thinks that by you having excess weight, it will keep you safe, then it is going to pull out all the stops to make that happen. And this is where people get into the phrase of sabotage. They talk about how they'll say that they are sabotaging their efforts. And it looks that way from the outside, and even feels that way to the person, because they're thinking, wow, I was doing so good on the blah, blah, blah diet. I had made it 3 weeks down the road. I'd made it 6 weeks down the road. I made it 3 or 4 months down the road and lost 15 or 20 pounds, and everything was looking great, and this is going to be it. And then all of a sudden, bang, they get up at midnight and start eating a snack. They eat a whole box of cookies, whatever it is, and they feel like they are undermining themselves. They're sabotaging themselves. And on a certain level, the level of the conscious mind, yeah, I guess you could say that that's probably true. But I say there's a deeper truth, which is, if your subconscious is trying to protect you, and if the subconscious is driving that behavior, those cravings and those urges, because it wants you to have more weight on to protect you, how could we say that that is actually sabotage in the end? Isn't that a kind of protective mechanism? If we can take that kind of view about things, then we're not fighting ourselves between what we consciously want, which is to lose weight, and we have perfectly good reasons usually for doing that, and the subconscious mind saying, no, we want you to have the weight on so that you will be physically safe, so that you won't be attacked again, in this example that I gave you before. We're not going to get to where we need to get to by pitting these two parts of you against each other. What we really need to do is we need to harness and bring the subconscious in line with what you consciously want. Okay, so let's go back to that example of a woman is attacked 15 years ago. Subconscious decides, hey, in order to keep you safe, we have to have this weight on you, this barrier between you and the outside world. And maybe even the perception is it's less likely to have an attack occur because the perception is there's less of an attraction to a would-be attacker. Maybe true, maybe not be true, may not be true. We want to then use hypnosis. which helps us communicate with the subconscious mind, to help the subconscious mind understand that this threat is no longer an active threat. It's no longer something the subconscious has to be on guard about. The war is over, in essence. I don't know if you guys have heard these stories about at the end of World War II, the Japanese had their military on a lot of these different islands on the approaches to Japan. And on some of these islands, years later, they found Japanese soldiers that were still holding out because they thought that the war was still going on. They didn't have a radio, they didn't have a television, they didn't have a newspaper. They thought the war was still going on. That's kind of the case in this example that I'm giving you of the subconscious mind of this hypothetical female still believing that this is a threat, even if her conscious mind says that was a long time ago, it's when I lived somewhere else, that person's in jail, it's no longer a problem to me. So I guess what I'm saying is we want to align these different parts of you with your conscious goals and stop this battling against yourself. Because the battling against yourself is always, generally speaking, is always going to lose because the subconscious mind is more powerful. And each time you get mad at yourself, because you sabotaged your dieting weight loss efforts, or you fell off the wagon, or you slipped, or whatever, that just creates more stress in your life. And the stress leads you down the path of stress eating, emotional eating, and maybe even mindless eating. I would say that many of us use food from time to time, or maybe some of us all the time, as a kind of drug, as a way of palliating, distracting ourselves from pain. And that pain could be emotional, it could be spiritual, it could be psychological, it could even be physical, or a combination thereof. And when a person has their hand inside a bag of chips and they're putting one after the other into their mouth, they're getting this pleasurable sensation. The pleasurable sensation is probably releasing dopamine. And this is, for the time that they're eating, helping to distract them from the underlying pain that they're feeling. My argument is, why aren't we focused on finding and healing that underlying pain? Because once the pain is gone, you don't have to tell a person with a broken leg to put down the crutches. Once their leg is feeling normal, once it's feeling healthy, once it's feeling comfortable, they'll put down the crutches on their own. There's no point in having the crutches. And I say it's very similar in a broad sense with food and with overeating and with dieting and with losing weight. All right, let us see who we have here. It looks like a small group today, which is fine. Cookie Thieves is hello to you, saying, I carry a lot of stress and I'm still eating nonstop. Okay, so Cookie Thieves, I don't know if you're willing to do this in sort of an open forum like this, and if you're not, that's totally fine. But if you want to give us an idea of the kind of stress that you're carrying, maybe some more details, I can give you perhaps some suggestions of things that you might be able to do. No guarantees, but I might be able to help out there. Here is 123 opera singer who says, I have been comfort eating since the day after he... Wow, and then it just cuts off there. There's nothing else. So 123 opera singer, if you want to follow up on that and let us know, give us an idea of maybe what happened. But it's certainly, I think you're responding to some of the things that I was saying, that it sounds like maybe a trauma happened at some point in the past. And ever since that happened, you've been comfort eating. And presumably the comfort eating is leading to other things. Excess weight gain, maybe even, who knows, maybe even medical conditions. If you want to share some more information on that, feel free. If you don't, I totally understand. Let's see. Cookie Thieves is saying, by the way, I'm starting to feel better, which is awesome. Here's Lupe Larios. Hello, Lupe. She says, yes, I totally avoid the news. That's so smart. I mean, we all have an awareness now that the food that you put in your mouth, or the things that we call, the stuff that we call food that you put in your mouth, is going to affect your body, and it's going to probably affect things like your mood. Fewer people, I think, understand, but it's still, there's an awareness, a growing awareness, that anything you even put on your skin, like personal care products that you put on your skin. The best thing I ever heard about this is anything you would put on your skin, do this test and ask yourself, would you put the same thing in your mouth? Because whatever you put on your skin is going right into your bloodstream. This is why a transdermal patch works. You can put a patch, a medicated patch on your arm, and those chemicals, those drugs will go into your bloodstream, right? So anything that you wipe onto your skin or your scalp or anything like that, your toenails, is literally going right into your bloodstream. And if you wouldn't put that thing into your mouth, then it might be a good question, like, hey, should I do this? But to Lupe's point, what goes in through the eyes and what goes in through the ears also affects you dramatically. And so avoiding the news is a really great stress reduction tactic for any of us. And as I've said on other live broadcasts, if you feel like, hey, I want to know what's going on, fine, read it. Read the news as opposed to watching the news, as opposed to listening to the news. Because when you watch things, it impacts you on a much deeper emotional level than reading about it does, right? Because you see the graphic representation of what they're saying. You might even hear people screaming. You see the pool of blood, when that slogan that I used before from the 11 o'clock news, if it bleeds, it leads. So Lupe, I totally commend you for having the awareness of limiting the intake of the news. And I would say, it's kind of like eating a Twinkie. Everybody that unwraps and eats a Twinkie knows what they're doing. They know that the Twinkie is not healthy for them. And once in a while, okay, fine, go eat the Twinkie. Who cares? It'll be, if the rest of your life is healthy, you probably aren't going to suffer terrible ill effects from it. Well, how many of us know for sure that when we're watching television, especially certain kinds of programming, that it's the equivalent of eating a Twinkie? So thanks for that, Lupe. Appreciate your comment. Cookie Thief says, I must have gained more weight since being in the hospital overnight last week because I ate a lot after my surgery. Okay, so surgery is scary. Even the word, I think, can evoke fear in people. And, going into the hospital, getting prepared, probably anesthesia, and then there can be a lot of pain for people after having surgery. So as I mentioned before, it may be for you, like it is for a lot of people, that the excess eating was actually a way of palliating the fear and the stress and the anxiety of going in and having surgery. And I don't know, but if you were feeling discomfort or pain afterwards, it could have been involved. There could have been a component of dealing with that as well. So I completely understand, and I hope you're recovering quickly and feeling better now. Let's see here. Here is Kristen M. And Kristen says, oh yes, so true. Great talk. Thank you for the subject. Well, you are welcome, Kristen, and I'm glad you're here. Feel free to ask any questions or comments if you wish. Cookie Thief says, how do I stop eating a whole lot? Okay, so that's a really good segue into talking about how hypnosis can help with this thing that I'm calling stubborn weight that just won't go, and how to use hypnosis so that you can make this permanent. So if the subconscious mind if the subconscious mind's role is to protect you, and if it has no concept of time, then one of the things that we want to be able to broadcast to the subconscious mind is you are safe. You're safe in a healthy body. You're safe weighing, let's say you want to lose 30 pounds. You're safe, and you're 170 now, you want to be 140. And that's a healthy weight for you. You're safe being 140 pounds, right? So safety is a key aspect of the messaging that's going into the subconscious. And for those of you who are interested in trying this, you can do so free of charge on my website, excuse me, not my website, my YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis. And just do a little search. There's a little like magnifying glass there, and you can just type in the word weight, and that will bring up scores of videos that you can utilize on a weight loss program of your own that costs you nothing. And what I would suggest is pick one of the sleep tracks for weight loss. Could be 8 hours, could be 9 hours. You can listen to this while you're sleeping, while you're working, or you're studying. Just play it in the background. If it's a subliminal, that means subaudible. So all you're going to hear is music, or the sound of rain, or the sound of ocean waves crashing on the beach. But just underneath that, programmed underneath that, are the words that are speaking directly to your subconscious mind. It's like it slips past the filter or the critical faculty of your mind and gets the information directly into your subconscious mind. And that deals with things like loving yourself exactly as you are today. The safety thing that I was talking about. It has, some of those tracks have programming on them which says things like, I feel completely satisfied eating 2/3 of the food that I used to eat. In fact, I feel full after eating 2/3 of the food that I used to eat. There's programming on there around eating healthy food versus unhealthy food. There's programming on there about hydrating yourself adequately, because there's study after study after study after study that proves that a lot of times when people have a hunger craving or a hunger call from their body, it's really a hydration call. And that when you drink water, your stomach feels more full. Your cells are getting what they need. I mean, we are mostly water. And a person isn't as hungry and they don't eat as much. So one of the tricks, actually, and I'm not saying this is a panacea, but you drink a glass of water 20 minutes before you have your meal. And if you do that, you tend to eat less than if you don't drink the water. Even things like the size of the plate and the portion size has been proven psychologically that people will tend to eat everything that's on their plate. And if you put less on the plate, you're not going to eat as much and you're more likely to feel full. They did these studies like in movie theaters where they were, that's where we mindlessly eat, right? With popcorn, watching this thing up on the screen and just eating all this popcorn. That it didn't matter how big the container was, the person tended to eat pretty much everything that was in the container. And the people who had the smaller containers reported feeling totally satisfied, just as much so as the people who had the giant containers. So there are these different hacks that are psychological hacks in nature that you can use. But getting back to my channel, pick an 8-hour subliminal track for weight loss, one that appeals to you. The topic, the specific kind of weight loss that is designed to listen to while you're sleeping, working, or studying. Have that playing softly in the background and do that for 30 days. At the same time, pick a shorter track that I would consider like an accelerator, that is an audible track, and it's usually around 20 minutes in length. And put the headphones on and listen to that one every day when there's nothing else you have to do. In other words, take 20 minutes out just for yourself and listen to this thing. Do these two things together for 30 days and see where you are. For some people, and you can read it in the comments, this works miracles. They're able to shed and drop all of these pounds seemingly effortlessly. Someone just actually wrote in on one of my weight loss tracks and said, "Am I being punked?" That was the first line that she stated. And then she went on to say, I can't believe that if all I can consciously hear is the sound of rain or the sound of music or the sound of ocean waves, I can't remember which one it was, that after X amount of time, I could be suddenly dropping all this weight when after struggling with this for so many years, it didn't work for me. So for some people, this is like a miracle. It gets right into the subconscious mind. It affects the perception in the subconscious mind, and boom, it starts to work. And I'm not saying you don't have to listen to it every night. You do. It's like a mental gym. You can't just go to the gym once. but it can be amazingly powerful. And I say that if you couple a subliminal track, sleep track, with a daytime short track, like 20 minutes, you can have remarkable results. Now, if that's not working, give it 30 days, for example. If that's not working, it just means there's something really potent deep in your subconscious mind that's setting up a block. It's basically saying it's not safe to let go of the weight. And I don't care that I listen to this guy every night telling me it's safe to lose weight. I know it's not safe to lose weight. In that case, what we would want to do is we would want to find the origin, the original trauma that set up the belief in the subconscious mind that you were not safe if you dropped more than X amount of pounds. We would want to, in your mind, using hypnotic regression, go back to that event, understand what's happening, and then resolve it, heal it where it lives. It's almost like removing a splinter from the mind so that that's not a pain point anymore, so that the subconscious mind now can look at that event and say, oh, I see that that's no longer dangerous. And it can take down the defenses. Now you can lose weight. All right, let's see. We've got a bunch of questions that just came in recently. Let's see what we got here. Here's 30-Day Jeff. Hello, 30-Day. I'm literally sitting in the same spot in the same hotels doing the same thing I was last week. Lots of damage. And been eating the, I'm going to say, free waffles and Lucky Charms in the hotel like a maniac. Okay. All right. So one of the things, so I said before, when people are driven to eat more than their body needs to be healthy, I say that is a response to pain. Could be spiritual, psychological, emotional, physical pain, or some kind of combination. Now, what I'm including in pain, and I'm not saying this is you, 30-Day Jeff, because we don't really even know each other, and I don't know the details that surround us. But boredom is a form of pain. And I'm not saying that you're sitting in the hotel feeling bored, but that is a kind of psychological pain. If somebody's doing work they don't want to do, if they're bored, human beings don't want to be and don't want to feel pain. And eating, as I mentioned earlier in this broadcast, is one of the mechanisms, one of the tools that we use. I'd say it's the most widely used drug that we have to distract someone from something that's going on right now. And if the only way out of pain is to distract yourself from it, and you are distracted when you're eating, you'll take that route. Some people use pornography to do that. Some people use excessive shopping. Some people use drugs, legal and illegal. Some people use nicotine. Some people use alcohol. I mean, it's so ubiquitous. And I'm saying it's coming because a person's unhappy in their relationship. Or they're not in a relationship and they're lonely. Or they're nervous about their financial situation. Or they're in physical pain. Or they're worried about upcoming surgery. Or they hate their job. There are so many reasons. There are so many things that can cause the pain, that can cause the anxiety, that leads to emotional eating. What is emotional eating? It's in response to some kind of a negative emotion. It's a way of soothing ourselves. When we were babies, and I remember this with each one of my kids, they get to the point where they discover their thumb. Thumb goes in the mouth, and now they're able to self-soothe. This is a big moment. Because up until then, you're carrying the baby around, you're patting the baby, singing, saying it's okay, blah, 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 blah. Maybe putting a little binky in there. And when they find their thumb, it's this breakthrough moment in a way. That's how I always viewed it. A breakthrough moment where they have learned how to calm themselves down when they are upset or anxious. Just because we stop sucking our thumb doesn't mean that we no longer have a need to soothe ourselves, that we no longer have a need to calm ourselves. Of course we do. And how many of us actually turn to food to do that? So, if that's the case, 30-Day Jeff, ask yourself, what is it about these hotel rooms? Is it because I'm not at home. I'm away from my loved ones. I'm away from where I feel comfortable. Are you traveling for business and you don't like your work or your job? Are you feeling lonely? What is the pain, in other words? And if you feel like commenting here and answering that question, if there is an answer, let me know. Let me understand. Let us all understand, because I think there's probably something there. There's probably some kind of pain there. And if you can figure out what that pain is, now you know, all right, I got to deal with that. And once I hear what that pain is, maybe I'll have some suggestions for you as to how you can deal with that specific pain. And it may be a singular thing. It may be plural. Not sure. All right, but thank you for the comment. Here's Lupe. Lupe says, I also am very sensitive to horror movies, so I generally avoid those as well. Here. I want to just ding that triangle for you again. I was just thinking about this earlier today because Halloween is coming up, and the next Friday Live, I wanted it to be something sort of based on Halloween. But I completely agree with you. I think watching horror movies is incredibly destructive. Your subconscious mind does not distinguish between what we call fact and what we call fiction. And pouring that kind of material into your consciousness is, again, I think just as a hypnotist, as an expert in the subconscious mind, I think it's incredibly destructive. And I've had people, and I'm not sure if that person is on this broadcast today, but people on lives talking about once they stopped, kind of chronically watching horror movies, their nightmares went away. What are we doing to ourselves with that? So Lupe, I couldn't not agree with you more, and thank you for your comment. Kitten in the Moon. Oh man, I love that handle name. That's so cute. And the picture that goes along with it is adorable. I lost a lot of weight a few years back, and all I felt was rage as the weight came off. I was a beast to be around. I'd love to lose the weight, but the Hulk might come out again. Thoughts? Okay, yeah, I do have some thoughts. This is what I was writing down prior to today's live. I wrote down, is the excess weight protecting you? Was one of the questions I had, and is it protecting you from physical violence? So as the weight's coming off, let's just say for the sake of argument that your subconscious mind thinks, oh my God, you're going to be vulnerable now to physical violence. You could imagine that anger, and the whole purpose of anger, is a protective response against the perception that something of value will be taken from you. So that's probably a good way for you to analyze this problem. So you said, and I want to pop this back up here again. I've lost a lot of weight a few years back. All I felt was rage as the weight came off. I'd love to lose the weight, but the Hulk might come out again. I'm a beast to be around when I'm free of the weight, when the weight is coming off. Okay, so if what I'm saying is true, that anger is a defensive response against the perception that something of value has been or will be taken from you, when the weight is off, what is the fear? What is the fear of loss that you have? Is it the fear that you won't fit in with let's say your family's overweight, you won't fit in with them anymore? Is it the fear that you won't fit in with your peer group anymore if they are overweight? Is it the fear that others will find you attractive and you don't want that? Is it the fear that now that the weight is off, other people are going to expect more of you, or that you're going to expect more of yourself? There's some kind of fear of loss that gets kicked up in your subconscious mind when that weight is coming off, and that is what's creating the anger. So the anger, in this case, is the key to follow that anger back toward its root. Once you find that, we'll know exactly what you're up against. And I would love it if you would comment down below and tell me if any of those things that I suggested, or maybe something I haven't suggested, is the case. When the weight comes off, I have this fear that I'm going to lose something else. Okay, let us know. Would love to hear that. Thank you for your comment. And love that handle, Kitten in the Moon. So cute. Stephanie says, thank you. Oh, you're welcome, Stephanie. Thank you for being here. And look at all those ones. It's very spiritual. 1111 Milligan. Cool. I love it when I see all those ones. Lana says, I've always watched murder shows, true crimes, police, fire, emergency, TV shows, and movies because it is entertaining for me. Now I'm wondering how I will stop. Okay. I guess, one of the reasons why I think, if you sort of read the classical psychological literature, if you read Freud, for example, and you read about advertisers in the 1950s when they first started combining psychological insights with behavior, what causes people to behave in certain ways. They came up with some pretty basic things. They said what motivates people in terms of behavior, getting their attention and getting them to act on things, is sex and violence. Those are the two things. And I think sometimes the way we lead our lives, compared to the way people led their lives, say, 200 years ago, where they were sort of doing everything. The family would have to create food and wash the clothes, and if an animal died, they'd have to take care of the animal. They'd slaughter animals, they'd harvest, family members would pass away because they didn't have the same kind of access to antibiotics and nutrition and so on. They would be involved in all these things. Now we're kind of isolated from all these aspects of life that all human generations prior to whatever it was, 100, 200 years ago, would have been part of. I mean, even if you talk about fire, if your neighbor's barn was burning 200 years ago, guess who's putting out the fire? It's not the firefighters, coming on a fancy truck with lights and sirens blazing. It's the neighbors are putting out the fire. If you have some other problem in your area, somebody dies, you're going to be there helping the family. You're probably going to be attending the funeral. My point is that we're so sequestered, so isolated, so in a vacuum now, that I think people feel a kind of loss of meaning in their lives, especially if you're just working in front of a computer. And so watching football players crash into each other, and I like football, I'll admit it, or watching a movie about war or violence or fire, police, crime, whatever, I think it definitely stimulates the autonomic nervous system. It definitely moves you into a stress response. You can feel your heart pounding sometimes. You can feel, the blood flowing through. You feel alive. So I understand what the attraction is and the draw to these things. And maybe, I think my suggestion would be, you don't have to cut it out entirely, just like you don't have to cut ice cream out of your life entirely. You just don't eat it every day. And maybe you take up activities in the real world, in the real physical world, that get your heart pumping, that get you feeling like you're alive. And it could be volunteer work. Many of you know this, I was a volunteer firefighter in Connecticut and upstate New York for something like 16 or 17 years. In Connecticut, I was also an EMT. And, talk about getting your heart going. My God. When the pager goes off and the police dispatcher is saying, we have a fully involved structure fire at such and such a location, and there are people jumping out of the windows, and you're on a fire apparatus with the lights and sirens going, and you're heading to this incident. I'm telling you right now, your heart is beating like mad. You have never felt so alive in your life. And so I'm not saying you have to go and become an EMT or a firefighter, but you can learn how to surf. You can learn how to scuba dive. You can do other things where you're balancing sort of the risk versus boredom, where you're taking an appropriate balance. You can go camping. There's all kinds of things that you can do to get out into the real world. And I don't think necessarily have to cut those kinds of TV shows or movies out of your life. I just think it's a matter of a balance, and make sure that you're feeding your subconscious mind, especially before you go to sleep at night, things that are calming, things that are maybe funny, things that will put that part of your mind at ease rather than jack up that part of your mind. So really great comment. And I appreciate the chance of walking down that road with you. So thank you. Let's see here. I just want to see if Kitten in the Moon got back to us with anything. Not yet. But 30-Day Jeff is... Let's see. I just want to see if he's got something here as a follow-up, because I also asked him some questions too. He's saying, sorry, lots of typos. 30-Day Jeff is saying, I wish it was pornography. There's no calories in that. And he is saying, it's a lonely job while I do it, but I make an entire year's salary in about a month. So I hate it, but it's worth it financially. It's a lonely job for sure. Okay, so that was one of the things that I had speculated on when he was saying, and I'm assuming it's a he, the name Jeff, so correct me if I'm wrong. I was speculating about, I was just imagining being in a hotel room. Hotel room usually implies, if you're in a hotel room a lot and you're by yourself, it usually implies that you're working. And he's saying that he can make a year's salary in like a month, so he can't not do it. But while he's there, it doesn't feel good. And what I'm saying is that that's probably what's driving this. What he's saying is uncontrollable behavior of eating, I think he said Lucky Charms or something, and something else, just like stuffing it down. Okay, so if you and I were working together, I would certainly acknowledge what you said, which is, hey, I can make a year's salary in a month or two at this job. I'm not giving it up. I want to do it, but I want to be able to do it in such a way that I don't go berserk with the food. And if it's loneliness, and I'm not sure we've totally established that, but that's the thing that you've said that I think is the most likely. If it's loneliness, then what we want to do is we want to provide your subconscious mind with its opposite, with feeling a sense of unity, a sense of belonging, right? Like now, if you're able to get that on the road with your coworkers or whatever, fine, but I know that that's probably super difficult. But here's the thing, here's the key. I'm going to use love for an example, because love is tied in with loneliness, right? Sort of the opposite of loneliness. If you're in love and you're with your beloved, presumably you're not going to be feeling lonely. Other people don't give you love. They trigger the feelings of love inside of you, to be sort of released inside of you. When a person that you love looks at you in a certain way, or says something to you, or touches you in a certain way, you release all of those chemicals associated with being in love. So bear with me here. With loneliness, in your mind, you can be anywhere, you can be with anyone, and you can feel the attendant feelings of that experience. So if you were, for example, first thing in the morning when you wake up, if you were to go into a meditative state or a hypnotic state and put yourself in a beautiful place, a place you already resonate with, like waterfall or desert or mountaintop or something like that, and you were to bring a beloved animal, a beloved person to you, living or dead, and you were to be in this communion with them. Remember what I said about movies? Your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between that, police car chase happening on the screen and you're in the police car chase. Right? Here's where we use it to our advantage. We have you in your mind. Put yourself in that situation, in that scenario, with the person that you love, with the animal that you love, living or dead. And feed your subconscious mind those feelings of unity, those feelings of belonging, those feelings of connectedness And do that in the morning for like 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. 5 minutes is better than nothing. And then do it again in the evening. Before the danger zone, when you're done working and before, the point comes at which you start gorging yourself. Do it again then. And do it again before you go to sleep. Do that every day for 30 days and see what happens. I do have two tracks on my YouTube channel. One of them is I Am Worthy of Love. And that's a subliminal. Listen to that while you're sleeping. Another one is I Am Worthy of Love, and it's audible. Listen to that one every day. See what happens. I think this will make a difference. And now that relationship doesn't have to be in your mind with another person or with, say, a beloved pet. It can also be with God. If you have if you have a faith, if you have a connection of some sort, you can utilize that. So all of these things could be enough to help change that behavior. I would definitely recommend giving that a shot. Start with that I Am Worthy of Love, the tracks, the subaudible, subliminal one that you listen to at night while you're sleeping. If you're working on a computer, you can have that playing in the background too. And then during the day, just carve out some time, put on some headphones, get in the tub, sit in a comfortable chair, and just listen to the I Am Worthy of Love and see if that makes a difference for you. But thank you for the follow-up and fleshing that out. So it definitely makes sense, right, with the theory that I was propounding before. All right, thank you for that 30-day. Appreciate it. Kitten in the Moon has gotten back to us. Let's just see here. Kitten in the Moon says, here we go. A whole bunch of things boiled up to the surface when I lost weight. But the thing I felt I lost the most was my invisibility. The thing I felt the most that I lost was my invisibility. People really don't see you when you're overweight. Okay, so Kitten in the Moon, that's, as you're saying, that's the important thing. That's the thing of value. That's the thing of value that you perceived you were losing or you lost when the weight went away, was the ability to be invisible. That's what has to get worked on, right? Why is being invisible important to you? There's got to be a really good reason why being invisible is important to you. And do you see how we're following? We're going, okay, a weight issue. When you lose weight, you get angry. Anger, great, anger. Let's follow anger. Anger means something of value is being taken from you or is already gone, and it's a defensive response. What is that thing of value? For you, it's invisibility. Now, why is invisibility important to you? Can you answer that one for us? I'd love to hear that. All right, let's see what else you put here too. I felt someone handed me a bunch of keys to the world I wasn't ready for. Okay, all right, so this is getting closer to why invisibility is important to you. That you felt like you're not ready for the keys to the world, right? So for a lot of people, oh my God, I want the keys to the world. In fact, that's what, I don't know if they do it anymore, but cities used to give a key to the city to like some famous person, a person who just hit, a home run to win the World Series. Here's the key to the city. Oh. It's always been considered like this really awesome thing. But for you, it's like, I don't want that. Why is it that you don't want that? Did you have some kind of a spectacular failure earlier in your life? Was there a spectacular failure in a past lifetime where you had some kind of power? Like maybe you got the keys to the car and you crashed it, or somebody got hurt. Or maybe you had some kind of authority at work or in some other situation, and maybe you made a mistake, or maybe you misused it and somebody got hurt. Maybe you got hurt. Do you see how this works? Your subconscious mind has been trying to protect you from having a really negative experience. It's not your enemy. The subconscious mind is your friend. But in this case, what we're uncovering here is whatever that precipitating event was that caused you to be afraid of having the keys to the world, of you needing to feel invisible in order to feel safe. That's what needs to get healed. Because if that doesn't get healed, your subconscious mind is going to keep wanting to protect you and keep basically saying, for you to be safe, for other people to be safe, you can't have that kind of power. That's what has to get fixed. All right, thank you so much for that. Let's see what time we're at. We're almost done here. I want to take another question or two, but before I do that, I want to talk about next Friday's Live at 5, which is sort of in honor of Halloween. So and I can pop up on the screen here. I made a little graphic for it. It just says next. Where is that? Next. There we go. So it's kind of dramatic, right? And it's kind of in keeping with Halloween, which is, how is death affecting your life? So death is the existential fear, right? And it has been since time immemorial. What happens when we die? I was having a conversation with somebody not long ago about how fear is often used to control people. And the greatest fear when it comes to controlling people is arguably death. So how is death affecting your life is what we're going to be discussing next Friday Live at 5. Nice little comfortable topic there, but I think it's going to be really interesting. All right, let's see if we've got one or two more questions before we go. Chihuahua. Hey, welcome back, Chihuahua. Good to see you. Says Peter, why some moms hate fat in their kids? My mom keeps telling me I am fat, but I don't feel fat. Okay, so I think in general, parents want the best for their kids. I think with being fat or heavy or overweight, I think some parents are probably concerned or worried that their child might be ostracized in a school setting. I think some parents might feel like if a child is overweight, that they won't be as healthy as they could be. I think some parents might feel like the child might have certain activities that wouldn't be available to them if they're overweight. And so if the parent wants the best thing for the child, they might be concerned about that. Now, unfortunately, a parent might take their own fear, their own concern, their own worry, and turn it into negative comments, accusations, which don't make the problem better. It makes the problem worse. So, I don't know, Chihuahua, if you're a minor, if you're an adult, but, having your parents calling you fat, that's not really helpful. Not at all. And what's ultimately important, if you're an adult, is feeling good. In fact, one of the things that I talk about in all of my weight loss tracks is people often put, I'm going to feel better about myself when I lose weight. And so they put losing weight as a prerequisite ahead of feeling good about themselves. And I say that's reversed. It should be the other way around. That we want you to feel good about yourself regardless of how you look, regardless of how much you weigh. Where is it written that you can't love yourself for exactly who you are today? And if you do that, it's more along the lines of bringing the subconscious, which is trying to protect you, on board the team, so that the team of your conscious and subconscious work on your health goals, right? If you work together, you're going to be successful. One of the best ways of starting this process is to love yourself for exactly who you are today. Not make loving yourself contingent upon losing weight or losing a certain amount of weight. You put loving yourself first and foremost and always. If you do that, you will be more successful. When you look at yourself in the mirror, you're not going to get angry at yourself, which is going to cause more stress and anxiety, which is going to cause you to engage in emotional or stress eating. Beating yourself up is not the path to success. It's the opposite. It's loving yourself. So hopefully, Chihuahua, you can love yourself first and foremost, regardless of what anyone else says to you. Okay? Hopefully that was helpful. Hope so. All right, thanks for your comment. Here is Jane Kaseniuk. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name there. I love the dual track audio you have. The first time I listened to it, it scared the crap out of me. Okay, so Jane is referring to, it's called dual track weight loss. And after, I think it's 9 to 11 minutes of hypnotic induction, which you're getting more and more relaxed, then what happens is a different set of hypnotic suggestions goes into your left ear while simultaneously, so like track A of hypnotic suggestions goes into your left ear, while a different track B list of suggestions goes into your right ear. And it's designed to kind of overwhelm your conscious mind, which then drives it deeper into your subconscious mind. That's my favorite of the shorter tracks. So if you guys are interested in embarking on like a 30-day challenge to yourself and utilizing hypnosis, and you don't want to pay anything, you could do, as I said before, a subliminal subaudible track, like a sleep track at night while you're sleeping. You can also do it while you're working or studying. And then, Jane is referring to this 20-minute track that you can listen to with headphones where you're not trying to do anything else. And that's this dual track where you're getting different programming that's going into your left ear than is going into your right ear. And it's kind of happening simultaneously. It's an accelerated version of getting this new way of thinking deeper into your subconscious mind. And again, if you combine that with one of the longer tracks that you're listening to while you're sleeping, that's the best chance you have for success with that approach. Jane also says here, oh my God, you pronounced my name correctly the first time. Wow. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. That's what they say. All right, let's do one more. Let's see if there's a question. Lana was the one that was talking about TV. Lana says, yes, I will slow down on watching life on TV. I'm a retired nurse, and maybe I miss the adrenaline rush. Yes, 100%. And I know what you're talking about because of all the work that I did as a firefighter and an EMT. There's definitely like an adrenaline junkie inside. And so you can't, nature abhors a vacuum. You can't just pull something away that you've been getting something out of and expect that something else isn't going to come in to fill that void. So yeah, see if you can create, in a safe way, of course, that sense of, because the other thing with being a nurse is meaning and purpose. So yeah, adrenaline rush when somebody comes in, I don't know if you worked in an ER, but if there's a code or whatever's happening, there's definitely a sense of adrenaline, and maybe you do miss that. But maybe you also miss a sense of meaning and purpose. And maybe there's a way there's definitely ways in the real world of recreating meaning and purpose, if not the adrenaline rush. And the adrenaline rush could come from, as I said, could come from surfing, could come from scuba diving, could come from traveling, could come from challenging yourself in different ways. And it doesn't have to be that you're doing, death-defying activities. You can just challenge yourself. Like, oh, I want to see if I can, go camping for 3 days in the wilderness, and the only way I can get out to these campsites is in a canoe, and I'm going to take on these things I haven't done before. By challenging ourselves in controlled ways, I think we become more confident, we become stronger, we kind of get excited by the challenges. Maybe it rains while you're out there and you have to build a fire. I mean, I think you get what I'm saying. But yeah, being a retired nurse, 100%. And I can totally understand where you're coming from. And I think now you understand what's going on for you. And maybe you can find that happier balance for yourself. So with that, thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to everybody, especially who commented, who asked questions. It really is what makes this so rewarding for me. And I hope for you guys as well. I hope you will all consider returning next Friday live at 5 for how death is affecting your life. This is a super existential topic, but one that I love getting into. Hope you have a wonderful beginning and rest of your weekend. And we'll see you next Friday live at 5. Take care.